My guest today is David Snyder. I've reviewed his movies The Quiet Arrangement and Dark of Winter, and I'm soon going to be reviewing his next movie, Swing Lowe Sweet Chariot. So we're going to be talking today a little bit about movies in general and movies in the future here. So I'll just start by letting him kind of introduce himself to you.
Hi, I'm David Snyder. I'm a filmmaker and music producer and writer and whatever else I get myself into. You know, I as a matter of necessity, I tend to do it all. So.
Which is often the case with low-budget films. So
yeah, totally the case. Right.
So let's go ahead and get started here. So first off, was there a particular film that made you think, I want to make movies?
Yeah, it was A Clockwork Orange. I saw it when I was, when was that? 88. I guess it was 1988. So I was about 14 years old.
Totally appropriate for a 14-year-old.
Yeah, right. Well, what it was I've got two younger brothers, and my parents took us to the movies a lot when we were kids, and so we just saw, we saw everything. We saw just a bunch of stuff, and so around 1985, I was about 10, 11 years old. I was 11 at that point. We got our first video camera, and after some convincing over the summer, my mom finally relented and let us use it. And we just made movies all summer, with my brothers and friends of ours. And that was basically, it just took up all our time. And so, I still thought movies were magic. It was kind of like, only special people get to make movies. And it was that kind of a thing. But as I was, going through high school, I just started watching movies more and more, and kind of watching and studying them. I still didn't totally understand the process, what a director was or what a producer was or any of that until Cinemax used to do these. They'd have a director's chair spotlight, and the 1 month was Stanley Kubrick, and so I was kind of looking at the guide, and I was like, okay, I've seen 2001, and I was bored, and I didn't care. But, Full Metal Jacket was going to be on. And I had recently watched Platoon. I was like, oh, well, this is the other big Vietnam movie that came out, so I'll watch that one, too, because I like Platoon. I would videotape movies at night when they'd be on real late at night, and then when I get home from school the next day, I'd watch them. So I'd always set the timer long so it wouldn't cut off the end of the film. I got home from school, and I watched Full Metal Jacket, and it really kind of put the zap on me. I was like, wow, this is something. I don't quite get it, but there's something going on here. And at the end of the film, they had a commercial for A Clockwork Orange, and it was going to be on later in the month. And I'm like, whoa, what the hell is this? Because it's just, you watch this little clip, the little trailer for it, it's crazy stuff. And so I asked my mom, I said, have you ever seen this movie, A Clockwork Orange? And she goes, yeah, it was a long time ago. She goes, I don't really remember it. I said, well, it's going to be on, like a Saturday night at like 1 a.m. or something. I said, you mind if I stay up and watch it? She goes, no, I don't care. She goes, she goes, I might stay up and watch it with you because I haven't seen it. I'm like, okay. So, so that weekend finally rolled around, and I was like, oh yeah, Clockwork Orange was on the night, and I sat down to watch it, and she started watching kind of the beginning of it. But then she got up and she was like doing housework in the middle of the night. It was really bizarre. That's what I remember. But I was floored by the movie. It was unbelievable. And I taped it. And, as I was watching it, and just Kubrick, and if you've seen his films, you understand what I'm talking about, the composition and the form. And it was, but the visual consistency between A Clockwork Orange and Full Metal Jacket. And then I started even thinking about 2001, and I was like, oh, wait a minute here. There's something more going on with that, too. And that's when I kind of figured, I'm like, wait, I think I know what a director does now. I said, and that's what I want to do. I want to be that guy. So it was Kubrick and A Clockwork Orange specifically that really got me interested in directing and what directors did. And then from there, it was like, I went from Kubrick to Scorsese, because I had seen The Color of Money and I really liked it, but I didn't quite, I still wasn't to that point where I totally understood what filmmakers did, what directors did. Mm-hmm. So I went back to watch that again, and then a friend of mine said, you need to see Raging Bull and Taxi Driver. And I think I saw Taxi Driver next, and that just blew my mind.
Right.
So it was Kubrick, Scorsese, and then Spike Lee. Do the Right Thing came out, and Do the Right Thing just again, seeing these films like in the way that I saw them, it kind of it really blew my mind. And so those I call them like my holy trinity of filmmakers. Those are the guys that like their movies like really taught me a lot in a short period of time about what filmmakers do.
It's a good three to choose. I love all three of them. So who would you say is your favorite director working today, and why?
Oh wow, that's tough. That's really tough. I love Paul Thomas Anderson. Boogie Nights might be my favorite film ever. Maybe. I mean, that's hard to say, but it's up there.
It's a good one.
Yeah. But then then he totally switched it up, and like There Will Be Blood. That film is just incredible. Mm-hmm. So I like P.T. Anderson. I like Wes Anderson. I know he's a very particular kind of weird dude, but I constantly enjoy his film.
Yeah, he's got a very, very particular style to him. As soon as you watch it, you're like, this is a Wes Anderson film. So.
Yeah, totally. You totally do. But and he's got a really great way of balancing like offbeat comedy and drama. Mm-hmm. He really does that well. I just saw Shane Carruth's new film, Upstream Color. Mm-hmm. Have you heard about that?
I have not.
He's the guy that did Primer.
Right, I know the name, and I have Primer on DVD.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've actually gone back and watched it yet, but I do have it sitting in a pile somewhere.
Primer is an interesting beast, man. It's really one of a kind of movie, and Upstream Color is too. I didn't like it as much as Primer, but I'm all in for whatever. If he decides to make more films, I'm all in for him. Because he just does it in such a unique and interesting way. Yeah. The classic guys like Scorsese still makes interesting films.
Right. Not quite as interesting as they used to be, but
yeah, right.
Not quite still good.
Yeah. Yeah. But still good.
His bad movies are better than most people's good movies. So
yeah, that's exactly right. That's totally right. I'm interested to see what as like far as Hollywood blockbusters go. I'm interested to see what Shane Black does with Iron Man 3, because I really love Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Mm-hmm. His only other directing effort. But I'm not really answering your question. I'm just kind of rambling.
That's okay. People ramble a lot on these things. So.
Yeah, right. I'm sure. I'm trying to think of guys that Michael Mann. I love Michael Mann. Yeah, he's great. Although I didn't much care for the last movie, Public Enemy.
Haven't seen that one yet. So
yeah, it's okay. It's just I don't know, for whatever reason, it just didn't hit me like the other one.
Well, when you have a body of work like he does, it's tough to be as good as you have been. So I mean, it's a lot to stand up to. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, he's incredibly consistent filmmaker. Damn, man, I don't know. That's a question I'll probably get asked a lot. I should research that.
See, if you had done some research, you could have seen the interviews I'd done before. Because these questions, they come up every time, and you would have been ready.
I know. I should have. I only read one interview.
So you probably have kind of already answered this question. But if you had to choose, what would be the favorite director of all time?
Yeah, it would. Yeah, it would be one of those three, and it would be four because I got to put Bernardo Bertolucci in there too, because I got into his work later. Mm-hmm. Luckily the first film of his I saw was Last Tango in Paris, and that's a great movie to start with. The way he moves the camera had such an impact on me because I tend to move the camera a lot. Mm-hmm. I can't help myself with it. I've tried to do it where I lock it down, and I'm just like, nah, this shot really needs to move.
Yeah, and trust me, for people like me that watch a lot of low-budget movies, I appreciate that, because there's so many movies I watch that are just like, let's throw a camera on a tripod and shoot an entire scene. Okay, now let's shoot another one.
Scorsese said once something about that he can't move, he wishes he could move the camera as fast as his eyes see camera movement. And like, as a basic version of that, it's just like, that's the way I always see the world. I always see it moving. So I always emulate that. I mean, there are times when you have to lock it down. You have to kind of pop and take a moment. And I'm trying to get better at that. So, just for pacing reasons and things like that.
Right.
And real quick, just to backtrack, you know who's a director? I love his stuff. Steve McQueen. He's only done 2 films, but he's got a 3rd one coming out. He did Hunger. Great filmmaker. And the reason I bring him up was Locking It Down. In Hunger, there's a dialogue scene that's just one shot for like 12 minutes.
Wow.
And the camera just like locked there, and it's a 2 shot, but it's incredible. I mean, because like at first you're just like, okay, and they get into the dialogue, and it's going and going and going, and then finally you realize, like, oh my God, we haven't cut away. And it's just like, they're just into the dialogue, it's back and forth. It's amazing. And yeah, great filmmaker. So, you know, good stuff. Check that out.
Cool. Yeah, I don't think I'm familiar with him, so I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. Hunger is a really interesting film. You know, based on a true story, but it's really like, it's almost abstract in the way that it's done. So it's almost kind of like an experimental film.
What is your favorite part of the filmmaking process?
Probably editing, I would say. I always look forward to it. It can be extremely frustrating at the same time, but I love trying to solve the puzzle, you know, of how the film needs to go together. It's just consistently an enjoyable experience for me at that point. I mean, I love shooting too. I hate pre-production. Oh God, it's terrible. And really I hate it because you try to plan ahead, you know, and you know it's not all going to go how you want it to go. That's why pre-production is kind of frustrating for me, because it's like, all right, I'm going to plan this to the best of my abilities, and it's all going to go wrong anyway. So,
that's very true.
Yeah. So, you know, that's why it's just kind of frustrating for me. And I don't storyboard unless it's like something extremely specific that I have to get, because I know that once I get on set, I'm going to change it. I'm going to, you know, if I pre-plan it, I'll throw it all out. So I very rarely storyboard. Sometimes I'll do shot lists so that I know I get the coverage that I need. But usually it's just I show up on set and I take a look and I'm like, okay, well, we'll put the camera here, we'll do this, we'll block it like this. And I think it's more organic to work that way anyway, because you know, you don't know what the actors are going to do. You don't know how the actors are going to take direction or anything else. I mean, I'll throw specific things that I'm like, okay, we've got to hit this at this point, you know, for the shot to work. On the last film, on Swing Lowe, the actors were really good. We shot the film on weekend, and the lead actress, Aaliyah, would organize rehearsals on Wednesdays. And she just did this on her own. We didn't find out until like 3 weeks or 4 weeks into the shoot.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it was great. And she would just get the actors together. They get the schedule for the week, and then she'd call the actors and be like, come on, we're going to rehearse. And so sometimes they would come to me and they'd be like, okay, when we rehearsed this, we did it like this. And that was awesome. That was great, because then it took a lot of the work out of it already, because they had already figured stuff out, and then I would make adjustments from there. We'd be like, well, okay, well, yeah, that works. And then, you know, and I would block the camera sometimes according to what they did. There's one sequence in the film where it's a confrontation between 2 characters, and because of the way that they had rehearsed it, I just blocked it as like a handheld shot, and we did it all the coverage in one take. It was great, you know, and knocked it out in maybe like 5 takes.
So just kind of to go along with what we were just talking about, are you trained at editing, or is that something that you picked up out of necessity?
No, I picked it up out of necessity. When I was still in high school, it was in 1990, there was a community access television station, and I went to volunteer. My mom kept pushing me. She goes, you should go volunteer. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And I did, and then I was like, wow, I should have did this a lot earlier, because once I got kind of trained on the equipment, and, you know, which came pretty quickly, I had free reign of the place. And in fact, you know, I was only 16 years old, but the guy that ran the station, the director, Jim Keppinger was his name, he trusted me so much that he gave me a key. Wow. And he's like, yeah, go, you know, you can go in whenever you want, use the equipment. I would run camera on football games, you know, high school. We did the high school football games and events like that. And then eventually he just bumped me up to directing those things. You know, there were a couple times that he didn't even show up. I'd just go do it, you know, and he'd be like, yeah, you got it, go ahead. And I was like, okay. That was a big training thing for me. And, you know, we'd have the 2 VCR decks, and we do online editing there. And then, like, at the end of the year, which would have been the middle of my junior year, we moved. we moved from Pennsylvania to Ohio, and then I didn't have that equipment anymore. So I was back to like using 2 VCRs on my own and like timing, you'd have to time the cuts and figure out, okay, well, it takes about 2 seconds for it to kick in. So you gotta like, you hit play on the one deck and then you're ready to hit pause and you're like, gotta get 2 seconds lead time. Oh God, it was a nightmare. I can't even believe that I did that. But that's kind of how I kind of trained myself like that. And then when I got to film school and we shot Super 8 film, so I got to actually physically cut film, and that was great. I love that. I really love that.
That's not an experience a lot of people have anymore.
So. No, it isn't. And I'll tell you what, if you're gonna be an editor, I highly recommend it. Yeah, it was great, man. Because that's how editing's been done for 100 years.
Right.
That kind of all that. It was just making movies when I was a kid, and figuring out what worked and what didn't work. And then when I got to film school, they teach us some things in class. Okay, well, this is why this doesn't work, but this is why you can do it anyway, because then you got the French New Wave, Godard, and Truffaut, and all those guys are breaking rules left and right. So okay, so then jump cuts do work. It depends what you're going for. Geez, what was the question? I'm totally.
And just to kind of go along with what you were saying there, I'm a big fan of the whole public access. That's where I got my first taste at editing and stuff. Is a community cable access channel in Albuquerque.
When was that for you?
That was about 2000, 2001, somewhere in there. Okay. I made my first short in '99 and edited it like on, I don't know, whatever's on Windows that you can edit with back in 1999.
Right.
And then I moved from Germany to Albuquerque, and when I got out there, I found community cable access and went and did that. And then one of the first things I did there is the woman who is kind of like my co-producer on all my stuff, and she was the co-writer of my first short. She moved out to Albuquerque after me, and we did a sketch comedy TV show.
Nice.
So, which we made 2 episodes and then kind of, fell to the wayside. But we made about an hour's worth of sketch comedy. I ended up editing it into a film version of it and putting it in a couple of very small film festivals. But yeah, community access for anybody out there listening who doesn't know where to get their start. That's a great place. Learn for free. They'll show you how to do it. All you have to do is show your stuff on TV. That's pretty much the rule. So.
Yeah, you can't beat that. It was such a great training ground. I learned a lot of stuff about just using professional equipment. Running those cameras and this was back. This was 1990. So we're shooting on VHS, and then they got super VHS tapes and that was right at the end, right when I was leaving. So, but they had character generators and title generators and stuff, and it was it was magic. I was able to do all this stuff. I look at it now and it's terrible, but
right.